So the 2025 Oscar race has certainly had its fair share of drama, with Emilia Perez being in the news pretty much every day. So which film is up against it for Best Picture? Well, the odds-on favourite right now is The Brutalist, but is The Brutalist a film that can beat Emilia Perez? The Brutalist, though, has had its own controversy as well, that being around the use of AI within the film. But as we see here, Adrian Brody on The Brutalist, AI controversy, no technology was used to take work from people. And I think that's a big thing, because when you think of AI, you think, oh my God, what's it going to do? Is it putting things into the film like images and all these other things, generating stuff in the movie that is just taking work from artists and all that sort of thing. But in terms of what we have here is an AI technology which works on voice work, so works on correcting the Hungarian pronunciation of these actors, so for Adrian Brody and for Felicity Jones. So it's touching up work in post-production. And I think when it comes to that, I feel like I'm okay with that. I feel like, look, we're going to have to get used to AI. I understand some people's criticism saying, if once you open the can of worms, it's going to explode like the internet. But I think with AI, you're just looking at every single new laptop these days. They're all AI powered. AI isn't going away. And I think it's going to be used in filmmaking everywhere, really, in a way. And sometimes you can't even prove it. Like you can have it, adapt your script in a way as well. And who's going to know? So I'm not too worried about that when it comes to look at Emilia Perez. What that's having to deal with right now, that's a whole different story. So for this, I understand where they're coming from to just use it as that tool. I think that's fine. Again, not taking work from people. That's the big thing here, because I think we're going to have to embrace it. So that's on the controversy. I think that's fine. I'm glad they clarified it now. But in terms of the film, is actually a decent watch. So here we have Adrian Brody, who plays Laszlo Toth. He is an architect, and he's someone who has escaped a post-war Europe to come to America and settle down in Pennsylvania, working for quite a wealthy man indeed. This man he has an interesting relationship with. Eventually we do see his family get more involved in the story in the second half. I say there's a second half because this film is split in two. We do have an intermission halfway of 15 minutes, and it was very welcome considering this is a film with a runtime of 3 hours and 30 minutes. So it is a very long movie. Some critics didn't even finish it, so I didn't even get to see a lot of Felicity Jones's performance, which is a shame because she's fantastic in the movie. But as it's a film really based around architecture, some people won't like it. Some people think this is quite a dull sort of thing. Boring! The Brutalist comes to us from A24 and has a budget of around $10 million, which is one of those numbers where I had to do a bit of a double take, thinking, what, $10 million for this film? Like, considering what was in it, considering who's in it, and everything, wow. I mean, and how good it looks. That's really impressive. That's one of the most impressive budgets I've seen. So fair play for getting this on, around $10 million. It's from Brady Corbet, who I haven't really seen many of his films, but I have seen him in a film before, which was Thunderbirds back in the early 2000s. And I can't believe that this is the same dude. I didn't actually put two and two together. So there you go. Now, as we can see on this poster here of the upside down Statue of Liberty, that's one of the first things we see in the film as Laszlo arrives in America. And that whole shot was just so amazing because we had that. It was so early in the movie. We had the score come in, and it just made your eyes widen because wow, what we're about to witness here. Him seeing this whole new world sort of thing as well. So you're feeling the same and thinking, wow, look what I'm in for here. Look for the experience of over 3 hours. What I'm about to witness. Is it going to be good? Hopefully, but just to have that initial feeling was fantastic. And as I mentioned, the score, I hope that wins the best score at the Oscars because it really was so well suited for what we're seeing here. And it needed a score to do that because, like I said, it's a film about architecture. It is not always necessarily the most entertaining sort of thing to talk about, the subject matter, especially brutalism. It's some people's cup of tea, some not. But yeah, the score was just unbelievable. When looking back on the Brutalist, the first half was definitely the strongest, as we had a part 1, a part 2, and an epilogue as well, which I think you can interpret in a few different ways, which is always a great way to end the movie, I feel. But when it comes to part 1, we really are focused with Laszlo as he's trying to navigate through America, and he's with his cousin, luckily, so we just have someone he knows and is able to speak his language as well. But then we also then eventually see him run into Harrison, who's played by Guy Pearce. He is the wealthy man I referenced earlier, who is very unhappy with how Laszlo has designed his library, and has a complete rage meltdown at Laszlo. And so that's a really great way to introduce the character, to really understand, that this is a guy who obviously is very emotional in this sense, but it shows how far he can go when it comes to letting his emotions run free, which later down the line in the film we can see in different ways. But Guy Pearce was just so great in that role. I mean, best supporting actor, hopefully for him. I mean, there's some good competition this year, but it was definitely the best role I've seen him ever. And I think there's a conversation between him and Laszlo, which is just them in a couple of chairs, and I think they're talking for about 10 minutes, but it was just so gripping. Like, I sort of just sometimes looked around at cinema thinking, I'm actually just so into this. Like, I'm so happy I am, but I was just checking everyone else as well, because this is just such great dialogue. When going into The Brutalist, I did think to myself, am I really going to like this? Because it's about architecture, it's about brutalism in particular, which is not really my cup of tea. But to be fair to the narrative, it is so strong that you really get into it. It's kind of changed my perspective on brutalism now. To just see someone like Laszlo with that creative mind, seeing how he wants to get things out there, and with the different techniques, and then also later on how he has to deal with different pressures and different things people are asking him in terms of when it comes to money. So he's got to maybe adapt how he does things, and whether he's accepting to that or not. Like, he's the one who's brought forward this vision, and they want to change it because they ain't got the money, or because they want to do something else. It's that sort of balance of power, and seeing how he manages all these situations as well, and what he turns to. It's all very intriguing. I realise I haven't yet mentioned Adrien Brody and his superb performance as Laszlo, which very well could win him a second Oscar. And he's one of those actors where you want to see what he's working on, because a lot of the time he does pick some great projects, and he always brings his A game to them. And so he's a standout here alongside Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones, who we'll get onto in a minute. But when it comes to Brutalist, we have an intermission, and with some films I've seen before, they have an intermission, but they don't always stop at a great moment. But here, it felt like a really natural point to stop the movie, and it was really fun actually to have an intermission of 15 minutes, because I went to see the film with my cousin. We had a little talk about it. We really were impressed with that first half. We're looking forward to the second half. And it's just a nice way just to break up a bit. And I understand it won't be for everyone. Some people, the whole sight of a 3.5 hour movie would just scare them completely. So that's fair enough. But for me, and possibly for you, let me know in the comments. But I love films with an intermission. I've seen a couple now. I went to see 2001: A Space Odyssey last year when that got re-released, and that was great to have that intermission. So I'm all for it. Get some more intermissions out there. So getting into part 2, we eventually see Laszlo's wife turn up, who's played by Felicity Jones, and like with Adrien Brody and Guy Pearce, she puts in a brilliant performance and is well deserving of her Best Supporting Actress nomination. But when it comes to the story, that's where the film starts to let itself down a bit, because unlike that first half, which was really solid and really focused on Laszlo, now we're having a bit more attention with his wife and attention elsewhere as well. So it's all starting to get a bit more scattered, even with the story when it comes to, like, we're going to different places to get resources, and there's a lot of focus on the task, but it's like, what else are we doing? And sometimes you think, okay, this is where we could shave some time off, because some of these scenes don't really feel like they're worthy of being there all the time. Like, maybe you can have them there, but just shave off quite a bit of them. Like, you can shave off 5 minutes of this one, 5 minutes of that one, and that will bring the runtime down. Because I did think, for such a long film, is all of it going to feel like it's necessary? And this is definitely where you find those points. There's still some great moments. Like, there's still some great conflict with Laszlo. You can see how everything around him, now he's got his family with him, how that changes the dynamic with him and Harrison, and that that business relationship, but also the actual personal relationship between the two of them as well. So there's a lot to sort of digest. But unfortunately not all of it works. As we had in the first half, that great conversation scene between Laszlo and Harrison, in the second half there's also another standout moment where, because Laszlo is working for Harrison, he's staying in his accommodation. And then we see Harrison around a dinner table with his family, and also Laszlo with his wife and his niece. And seeing how Harrison treats them and disrespects them in a way, and also seeing how he treats Laszlo, and so they get to see that of Laszlo. And so it really gives Laszlo a different vision of what this man's like. Now he's not just on his own, not everything's just within his own mind. So now he gets to see how he does treat those around him. So everything's bouncing off more people now. So yeah, I thought that was just great. It really seemed to open up a different sort of view of these characters to each other, even from across the table, and the differences of their approach.
Perhaps you can help your husband sound less like he shined shoes for a wage.
Eventually, we do get to the end of part 2, which I thought was well wrapped up, quite in a symbolic way. It did feel like there was something missing a little bit though, but I did quite enjoy how it finished. But then we do get the epilogue, which when I first saw it, I was scratching my head a bit. But after seeing it and having some time with it, I quite like that they had that in there just for the conclusion of Laszlo's story. So with all my thoughts for The Brutalist in mind, do I think that it can beat Emilia Perez for Best Picture? Well, just looking at them as just films for a minute, I think The Brutalist is by far the better film. It's just so much more better in all these different categories, really. But when you look at Emilia Perez, it has got more nominations, and a lot of time that those films do win Best Picture. But then we do bring in the controversies, and I think especially the Carla Sofia Gascon one, which, you know, her being the titular character of that movie, that's going to have a damning effect on that movie, I think, overall. And I think, as I said in my video for Emilia Perez, which I'll link on the screen in a minute, I think it will win some awards, but not a lot. And so I think The Brutalist is well deserving and should win Best Picture. But if it doesn't, then I hope Conclave does. Like, that is my second choice. As long as Emilia Perez doesn't win, I'm happy. So if you've seen The Brutalist, what are your thoughts on the film? Do you think that it's going to win Best Picture? Do you think Emilia Perez is going to win Best Picture? Do you think something else is going to win Best Picture? Do you even care? Let me know all those thoughts down in the comments. And if you do want to see my thoughts on Emilia Perez, they're on screen right now, as well as a video that YouTube are recommending for you.